right. Mentioned just a minute ago before we started to a couple of the A-listers that were here like 3 hours early, just really anxious to start the meeting today. I put something on the playlist feature of our channel. I'm going to put some more of those on, but they're just, it's a good example of tools of artistic critique and their application. Over the next month and a half, we are going to be dealing with the third part of the Tools of Artistic Critique module, which is where you submit a statement that says you both critiqued somebody else's work and you also critiqued one of your own works. The caveat for that is that the work needs to be done by somebody in this class and for this class. I had asked a couple people last week to try and do this, critiquing artwork. I did not follow up. I don't know if they're ready. If they aren't, that's fine. We'll try it again the Friday after spring break. So that the Friday when we come back from spring break, we'll address that again. Unless, of course, if are either of those people that I asked here that could actually do a critique?
I know I was one who volunteered and I'm ready for that.
Oh, okay. That'd be awesome. I think I had asked like 3 people. If one of you is ready, that would be absolutely great. For that assignment, again, what you need to do is submit basically 2 sentences. The first sentence will say something along the lines of, on Tuesday, the such and such, I critiqued so-and-so's carving. And also on Tuesday the following week, I critiqued my own wire sculpture. And that's pretty much what that is for the submission. But for the assignment itself, you're going to go through those 4 steps in the Tools of Artistic Critique over those objects in class, either on camera or in person. And we can do it via video on Fridays when I show an image on my screen and then you go through and do the Tools of Artistic Critique, so you don't even have to appear on camera if you don't want to. Oh, let's see. Was it Lauren that said you had volunteered?
Yeah, but I actually would prefer to do it in person.
Okay. Let's do that. Let's plan having you do that on Thursday then, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. And that's not Thursday over spring break. That's the Thursday after we get back, just to clarify that. I don't want you to be all alone standing in the middle of class. But what I did want to do is a screen share really quick and walk through those steps of artistic critique. And I want to do that in just a couple of minutes. Before that, there's a couple things that I need to address. One is yesterday morning, I am so sorry. The rules for class attendance are we can't be closer than 6 feet apart, and we tried to crowd too many people into that room. I think we still were able to maintain social distancing, but I worry more about your guys' safety than whether or not you get all your attendance points exactly. If you come in and the class is full, say something to me, and the people that are assigned to that section for attendance, they're the ones that get to sit first. And even if somebody from another section comes in early and you're assigned to that section and you come in a little bit late, the person that came in early, because they're assigned to a different section, they're the ones that get to get the little seat and sit by the door. So technically they aren't in the classroom, but they can still hear and participate. There hasn't been any cases of student-to-student transmission in the 3D art area, and I intend to do everything in my power to make sure that that continues. That's a really good winning streak to have. So if you guys are willing to follow me with that, I would really appreciate that. We do have one person that needs to switch from Tuesday morning meeting to Thursday morning because of a change in work schedule. So if any of the people that are currently meeting Thursday morning are able to switch back to Tuesday morning, please let me know as soon as you can, and we'll take care of that. Also, if you happen to miss, like yesterday, traffic was horrible. Last night in particular, and a couple of people got stuck on the highway. If you miss, you can get your attendance point also by meeting during that week on the evening section or the following week on the evening section and make that up. I say that because the evening section, even though morning we are totally full, evening section there's always a seat. And if you let me know that you're coming, I can make sure that there's room for you. Does that make sense to everybody?
So are the evening sections the same in accordance to making up?
Yes, we covered the same material.
The museum walkthroughs?
If you miss a class during the week, you have the option of either doing the museum walkthrough, or you can come to the evening section during that week or the following week. Make sure I know what's going on. Make sure you talk to me beforehand and do the work in that class. And it's the same as the attendance makeup with the museum walkthrough. Was that what your question was, Hiram?
Yes, it was. Thank you for clearing that up for me.
Yeah, I've never done this before, so it's kind of awkward for me still. But things are so wackadoodle right now, with everybody trying to scramble and compensate for the fallout about what happened with COVID and what is still going on, that I think it's perfectly appropriate to be flexible. And I hope that everybody else is flexible with me. Okay, first code word for today is umbrella, as in Umbrella Academy. Okay, and we're also going to take attendance for everybody that's here. Is Sarah here? Okay. I've already seen Kayla, Camilla, and Nicole. Is Bailey here? How about Madeline? Emma, are you here? Okay. Grace? How about Kelly? Oh, yeah, I see you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Catherine?
I'm here.
Excellent. I see Taylor, JC, and Alexis. Brianna?
I'm here.
Excellent. And Brooke, I see that you came in. How about Lauren? I see you. David, I saw you and your fantastic hair walking around.
Thank you.
And Hiram, I see you. Rachel, are you here? Yep, you're right there. Okay. And Summer, are you here? Okay. I was going to say, if you come in late, let me know. But if I say that, it's not going to do any good because the people that need it aren't here to hear it. All right. The next thing I wanted to go over is annotated bibliography. Had questions about that, several really smart questions. And I think it's important that everybody over this next couple days look at the videos, look at the annotated bibliography stuff that's in that assignment part of the module, and see if you can understand it as well as you can. One of the really smart questions that I'm getting is, do these need to be scholarly articles or peer-reviewed? This is not an art history class. what we're trying to do is flesh out our understanding of the work and the background and motivation of an artist. And for example, if you chose Ai Weiwei, he's one of my favorite contemporary artists. He's from China. He wasn't even allowed to go back home after he left to go to art school because he started doing things that just a lot of people, it didn't sit right with a lot of people that were decision makers. But if you go online, you can see there's a number of really good 6 to 12 minute video clips on YouTube. A couple, it wasn't CNN, but it was another one of the big news services did a couple interviews with him. One was his involvement in immigration in Greece a year or two ago. A couple others had to deal with him. He bought some one-of-a-kind Ming vases and took video of himself dropping them. And there was, you can get either that video on YouTube, or what is better is are a couple YouTube videos where they talk to him about why he did that, and they show that video. So something like that is a great for addition to your annotated bibliography. But there are also articles that you can find online about different specific shows that he's done, as well in China, as well as other places, and also specific work that he's done. And I like those articles. They're not terribly long, most of them. What I like about them is that they describe in detail the artwork in question, and then they also talk to him and people around him, where they kind of flesh out his motivation and his reasoning for doing some of the things that he does. And so annotated bibliography does not need to be limited to print media. It can be videos or anything else that you find online. But there are a couple of things that I want you to be aware of as you do this. And feel free to ask questions as we're talking about this. One is, does anybody know, I'm just reiterating from our conversation on Thursday, what qualifications do you need to have to post an article on Wikipedia? Anybody?
Have access to the internet.
Exactly. Every voice has equal weight. And the thing that separates out a Wikipedia article from something that's not is the audacity of whoever it is who wrote it. So I would, if you look up your artist on Wikipedia, use that reference with a grain of salt. But what I love about Wikipedia is that almost all the time, the articles at the bottom of them, when you see the resources, those will link to real articles that you can actually use and real information. And that's what I would go to Wikipedia, look up your artist or look up works that the artist has done, and then follow through with a lookup on those or linking to all of the source articles that are at the bottom of the Wikipedia article. Okay, does that make sense? Sorry?
Yeah, that makes sense. Quick question, Andrew.
Yeah.
My artist has been dead for a little while, and what am I trying to say here? There's a lot of resources, but a lot of them are like secondhand accounts of her. But they seem, they're no more than secondary sources. Is that okay? Or there are people who knew her primarily?
I think that would be a really interesting thing to deal with. If you have any questions, you can send me links to some of them, but that sounds like a really good idea.
Sure. Today's when I'm going to try to, get all 10 of the sources figured out. And if I'm unsure of any of them, then I'll send you any questions, but I'll have an answer for today. And if not, I'll come up with a backup.
Right. I think that's a good plan. Another thing I want you guys to all remember is that if you are having a difficult time and you cannot find all the sources you need for your artist, let me know and we'll pick a different artist. Okay, I really do not want anybody to have an aneurysm or a stroke stressing about this thing. It's to help you really get into depth about some of the 3D artists that we deal with. It looks like, Grace, you're here now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple other things I want you to consider. As you are doing the annotated bibliography, you'll see that it requires like just a paragraph or so on each of the articles. What I want you to do is approach that from the perspective of what if 10 years from now you needed to find out about this artist and you go back and look at that, is that going to be of any use to you 10 years from now in revisiting or learning about that artist? Or complete stranger, is it going to be of any use to them? The annotation is usually going to be, well, it's ideally going to be about 3 to 5 good sentences long, and the best ones are actually going to be 2 paragraphs, with each paragraph being 2 to 5 sentences. But in that, instead of copying down the article, what you're doing is going to be saying, I really appreciated watching this 17-minute segment on Ai Weiwei and his smashing the Ming vases, because it took the time to go into depth as to his motivation. You know, he's frustrated with contemporary Chinese culture and governmental bureaucracy, and how they seem to bury their heads in the sand regarding current events directly affecting Chinese people and elsewhere in the world. And by destroying something that is completely unrecoverable, Ai Weiwei is showing that he feels that in some respects, the way that things are in contemporary China is really destroying in an irreparable way the history and momentum that the Chinese people have built for the last 2 millennia. You know, something like that would be, that was just off the cuff. And I have no idea if there's actually a video that talks about like that, but I think that that would be make for a really good annotation in your bibliography. That was about 2 paragraphs. Each one was about 3 or 4 sentences. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at. You're not recapping everything word for word like you're a sportscaster, but you are talking about why that source is important and the new information that it gave you. Does that help clarify this for people?
Yes.
Thank you. I am pulling up something that I'm going to do screen share with, because now we're going to talk about the thrills and chills of the excitement that comes with applying the tools of artistic critique. Now let's see. All right, here we go. Does everybody remember the 4 steps of for the tools of artistic critique? Here's the first one. Feel free to holler them out. There's 4 of them altogether.
Describe.
Excellent. Somebody else? Oh, come on, guys. I have it on my screen here. What's the next tool?
Analyze.
Excellent. What's the third tool?
Interpretation.
Excellent. And what's the last tool? Anybody remember? It starts with a J.
Is it like judgment?
Yep, that's
Like our own
exactly.
personal judgment of it.
Yes, very good. All right, and our second code word for today is Fanana. It's like banana, but with an F. And it comes from the lovely island nation of Tonga. Okay. As we move forward to this last segment of the Tools of Artistic Critique module, what I would like you to do is plan beforehand when you are doing your critique, not necessarily everything that you're going to say, but have in your mind at least one question to discuss from each of these 4 steps. Okay, like from description, we have, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 5 different questions, 4 or 5 different questions. From analyze, we have 3 different questions. From interpret, we have, it looks like about 8 or 9 different questions. And from judgment, we have a couple different questions, but basically the judgment is doing your best to articulate why you feel the way you feel about the artwork. And I think that it's really important as well, over the next week or so, take some time to go over and look at these elements of art and principles of design. Because what we need to do is get into a habit of using these to both describe what we're looking at, but also keep in the background of our minds as we're going through the process of actually looking. Asking ourselves questions like, in this piece, does it appear to be unified? What are the things in this piece that make it so that elements are unified, and what are the parts of this piece that make it look like the pieces are separate? Because they can have both. They can be unified and can also have variety. Is it well balanced? Is the color consistent? Does it look like the color was applied purposefully? Or does it look like it was completely random? Or, better yet, was it purposely applied to look like it was random? Is the texture consistent? Is the texture intentful? Can you identify rhythms with either shapes or textures? Are there any specific focal points? Or is this whole thing designed to keep your eye roaming around? Does it feel like it has mass? Does it feel really heavy? Or, on the other hand, does it feel like it's super light? So these are the things to keep in the back of your minds, so we could talk, so that you could talk about it as you go over your tools. Looking at these questions under description, I would like somebody to chime in about what aspect of the tools of artistic critique does the description really deal with? Is this a personal judgment, or is this intended to basically allow you to articulate your observations? Could someone please chime in on that? Again, look at the questions to consider and how that affects, or how that may help you to understand what the description part of the process is.
Yeah, I would say it's more of the description of the physical properties that you see or that were used rather than your reaction to it. I think that the reaction should stay in the judgment.
I think that's really good. And this is really difficult, I think, for a lot of people to deal with. I think that was an excellent answer. Thank you. Because it's very difficult a lot of the times to separate our immediate reactions with just our observations. But yeah, description is limited to the physical impact this object has on our senses and in the sensible realm. So how heavy it is it? How tall is it? And just having a couple of those questions to apply when you do this process in class is going to be excellent and a very big help. Now, here's a really good question. I would like people to look at the different aspects under analysis and the different aspects of interpretation. And I'd like somebody to chime in on the idea, what's the difference between analysis and interpretation?
So it actually, the biggest thing that stands out to me just from the get-go is interpretation literally says your own perspective and experience can be combined with the information you have gathered thus far. So not only are you looking at the piece from a standpoint of an artist that is trying to understand the certain techniques that a fellow artist has incorporated into their work, but you are looking at things that you have done in the past and trying to see if you can make connections that way. You're trying to see if you can understand where the artist is coming from on a personal level, not just an artistic level.
I think that's excellent. That is absolutely excellent. And that is a really good consideration of interpretation. Now, you talked a little bit about some of the aspects of analysis in that. Where does analysis stop? Where do you, and then start becoming interpretation? So you focus quite a bit on interpretation. Can you tell us what the limits of analysis would be?
I don't think in this case analysis really has a limitation per se. I would say after you're able to identify the keyest aspects, the main techniques that the artist has incorporated into the work, I think that's when it would be easiest for you to start interpreting.
Okay.
But I mean, just because you start interpreting certain aspects of an art piece doesn't mean that you stop analyzing it, because the longer you look at a piece, the longer you're studying a piece, more and more different effects are going to start showing up, more techniques are going to become more evident to you.
I think what you just said is absolutely excellent. And this is good, because analysis and interpretation, when you're applying these tools, they will really blend into each other quite a bit. The separation is, like Hiram was saying, is that analysis is examining it from the point of view of what that artist did. And interpretation is kind of infecting what you're observing with your own life experience. So a good idea of separation would be, or an example of separation is, this artist has used a hasp with a rather particular, rather distinctive texture to get an effect where it almost feels like the casting of fur in this sculpture. And my interpretation of that is, I'm reading it as a casting of fur because that's how I've done similar things. And the fur kind of brings to mind like the smell of wet dogs, but it also brings to mind comfort and warmth. And that's when I'm starting to apply interpretation. So I think that your observations are really, really good. Thank you very much. That's excellent. And as you're doing the tools of artistic critique, I think the most important thing is to try to separate out description at the beginning, make some very clear observations on the analysis, but then when these two things will blend together quite a bit, and that's perfectly fine. Just go through a couple of the questions, and that'll be just fine. And then finally, when we get to judgment, I think the questions are really good on here, and I think everybody will be able to form at some point an opinion over something that they see. But why is it valid for us, or why is it important for us to apply a judgment to something that we see? Why is this aspect important? As human beings, as social animals, we are trained to believe that judgment should be reserved. And judgment a lot of the times is associated with things like prejudice and all sorts of isms. And I think that improperly applied judgment, I mean, that can be true, but also judgment allows us to keep ourselves safe and to make good decisions. I'm not talking about prejudgments, that's prejudice, but judgments, I think a really good way to put it is, I'm sure that some of you have heard me quote Winston Churchill before when he said, good judgment comes from experience and experience comes from bad judgment. why, as artists, do we need to take any sort of responsibility for applying judgment? You know, what gives us the right to judge something? Can anybody weigh in on that?
Because I've been judged, and so it's only fair.
I think that is one way to look at it, and I think that's completely valid. From an art perspective, what makes our judgment valid? And I want you guys to consider something. All of you have experience as professional artists. And you just keep that in the back of your mind for, you know, answering this question. Why is it valid for you to be asked to judge something? I think that what was just said is completely valid. You know, you're in a process of being judged. All of you are going to be going into, if you're not already, a focused degree program. And part of that is going through the process of submitting your CV and your portfolio. It has to be judged. That's part of the process. And sometimes that can be a little personal and that can hurt a little. But that's just part of the reality. What I want you to consider is that with your own life experience as professional artists today, you have qualities of perspective grown out of your own experience that makes it so that when you judge something and you're honest about it, that can provide elements of worthwhile material for other people. From a couple of perspectives. One is you judge something that's a worthwhile work of art that can make an environment better. People will, or people can, and hopefully should respond to that. Say, yeah, this does make things better. This does lighten up the environment. This does make the environment more worthwhile. On the other hand, when you are critiquing your own work and you're helping other people be better, you use your own personal experience to make these kinds of judgments as to, yeah, this piece feels a little bit off balance. We can apply the tools of artistic construction. We can also apply unifying principles of art, look at this and make suggestions about why this thing may feel a little bit off balance. Or perhaps you are trying to produce a work of art to garner a certain response or under a certain motivation, and it doesn't feel like your visual vocabulary is really reflecting that accurately. You can use your judgment to make that thing better, either for the thing that you're making yourself or to help one of your fellow artists to become even better in their own work. Does that make sense? I'm hoping if
Yeah,
we're
it does.
okay.
Yes, it makes sense.
Right, good. Because I don't want you to feel like you're being put on the spot to make a judgment that is potentially invalid, because you are making a judgment using your own experience, and that, I think, makes the judgment not only valid in itself, but also valid for others and yourself to use. Okay, this brings us to our third code word. Third code word is one of the great apes. It's bonobo, or one of the great primates. I'm going to turn off screen share now. All right, excellent. Are we back to regular video now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We only have about 15 minutes left. I wanted to cover building access really fast for this next week, and then I want to talk to everybody about what we started this week, the module for the structure with skin. First, building access, and I will send out an email to everybody reiterating this. Monday the 8th through Thursday the 11th, we will have access to the sculpture lab and our own classroom from 7:30 in the morning until 8 p.m. Now, because of limitations on personnel, the doors that we almost always use to come in to the 5th floor will remain locked. So just go up a floor to the 6th floor and you can go down the stairs, or you can go down the elevator to get to our level. All right? Is that clear for everybody? Okay, I'm going to ask two questions. One is, how will you access the 5th floor if you decide to come in next week?
From the 6th floor.
Excellent. Thank you, Hiram. Can you come in on Friday next week?
No.
Excellent, Brianna. Thank you very much. I will email that out and send that to everybody. Now, for the last few minutes that we're together, have you been able to wrap your brains around this whole structure with skin idea? And how have you been doing?
It's a process.
It is a process. Has it been painful for anybody? Or has it been a little nerve-wracking? All right, Summer, I see that you're here. Is that right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. All right, did Sarah make it? How about Bailey? Are you here? Madeline? Emma, are you here, Emma? All right. Did the little bit of work that we do this week in class, did that help everybody get the juices started on this project?
I found it quite helpful.
All right, good. This weekend, I would like everybody, as much as possible. I know that spring break is coming up and you guys are going to have, no doubt, tons and tons and tons of fun. But this weekend, if you can, I would like everybody to do their best to watch all those videos of the different artists and just get thinking about it. And before spring break starts, do your best to do some sketches. Now, I know that it looks like I expect you to work on it over spring break. I will adjust the due dates for things so you don't feel like you have to do that necessarily. I'm just trying to, we'll have to talk next week about how we can overlap a couple things so you can still get your carving in. But I do want you to be able to have a start on the module making, module designing, and thinking about that this weekend so that next week, or the week after spring break, we can really get into it. All right. Does anybody have any questions or observations so far in what they've been doing? What shapes seem to be the easiest to make, and what solutions have you come up with for putting the girders together?
I think squares are going to be the easiest to make, but I'm gonna try and stick with triangles just because I know they're more structurally sound.
All right, yeah, and it would be interesting to see what you come up with those kinds of things, using triangles, knowing that you like the squares, because that is going to form how you design the triangle structure. So it'll be interesting to see that. And I like the fact that you're choosing something that's just a little bit more challenging, because I think squares, we are used to them, and that does seem to be perhaps a little conceptually, maybe a little bit easier. So I'm glad to see that you're challenging and pushing yourself. Anybody come up with really super weird solutions for putting the girders together? Or what's the most unusual material you think you've considered using? Anybody want to use bubble gum? Oh, I didn't tell you about. Have I told you guys about our Irish setter growing up and my little brother's use of bubble gum? Anybody?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Okay, gum is a really good structural support for a lot of things. Actually, cream toothpaste is actually very good too. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it becomes almost permanent, which is kind of scary knowing that we use that several times a day all the time in our mouths. But cream toothpaste is another really good adhesive. But my little brother liked to buy packs of bubble gum and chew the entire pack all at the same time. And our dog never trusted him. We had an Irish setter with really long hair. She was absolutely beautiful. I remember one day that my little brother had been saving up his allowance money for months and blew it all on as much bubble gum as he could get. And that Saturday, he was out in the backyard, and it looked like he was brushing our dog because she was sitting in his lap, and he was just stroking his hand over her head. And we thought, well, isn't that sweet? They're finally getting along. About an hour later, he comes inside, and the dog is still in the same spot, and she doesn't move. An hour later, she's still in the same spot. So my mom and I went out and checked it out and found out that my little brother had taken $10 worth of bubble gum, chewed up the entire thing, and wrapped the dog up with bubble gum like a mummy. And the dog couldn't move because every time she tried, the bubble gum would pull her hair, and it hurt too much. We were able to get it out with peanut butter, but that is an image that is going to stay in my mind for quite a while. So it's fun. The moral is totally fine to use bubble gum in this assignment. Just try really hard not to apply it to living animals. Any other observations about this project, or any other questions about the annotated bibliography or the service learning?
When is a recommended date that you would like us to shoot for having our annotated bibliography completed?
I think that's an excellent question. I know that I would like everything done by let's see, I think it was next weekend. Let me double check on that. Okay, I do have it scheduled for March 7th, which is Sunday, but I think you'll agree with me that's probably a little bit too tight. I would say I'm going to go through and change that all so that it's the Sunday after spring break. No, let's see. No, when would that be? Hold on just a second. Let me do some math here. On the 21st, I think I would really like to see if you guys can get it done this weekend or next weekend. But I think that we'll probably have to change that final due date to March 21st. If you can get it done sooner, that will put a lot less pressure on you, though. So, what are your thoughts, everybody?
Yeah, that works.
So we should be shooting for this weekend. That would be like the best for us.
I think the best would be to shoot for this weekend, but I'm thinking that I will change the due date for the 21st. But if you can get it done this weekend, that's great. Actually, no, I'm not going to change the due date. I'm going to leave the due date as it is. Just that you guys that are here with me right now will know that nobody's going to get in trouble for another 2 weeks. How's that?
I like the sound of that.
Sounds good.
Right now, for the people that are doing the service, I think that's Kayla, Grace, and Taylor. You're all in this. How is that coming along?
Pretty well. I'm actually, I just talked with the group I'm working with last night, and I've been trying to, I guess, like put together all the assignments. This week there's like a couple that are due for like what am I doing and who am I working with and those kinds of things, and I'm just now beginning to figure all that stuff out.
All right, that's great. I think that's also all supposed to be due on Sunday, but if you need an extra week or so, also again that's fine. That's totally fine. For the service learning things, the next thing that you're going to be spending the bulk of your time on is the actual project itself, and that'll probably take up almost all the rest of the semester. So I'm really glad to hear, Taylor, that you're getting so much done. That is excellent. Anybody having issues with the service learning personnel? Any of you guys having issues that are just seem really difficult to deal with?
I kind of had an issue. Like things were going really well, and like I reached out to the people I was working with, like had a meeting, and I said like I'll get back to you like when I'm available, and then I got back to them, and like they just stopped responding, like won't answer my emails. So I was trying to come up with a new solution of like reaching out to possibly someone else, just because they won't get back to me anymore.
Well, and this is a difficult situation. I'm sorry, I'm typing something really quick. Because do you feel if you move to somebody else that you're almost like betraying the person you've been working with? I think that's you're on a time crunch. This is your professional future essentially that you've committed to. I think if you need to drop somebody because they aren't getting back with you, it may just be that they're overwhelmed with stuff, and just a note like, hey, I'm sorry that you're so busy. Let's get together later when things calm down, and then just move on to the next person. Is that the kind of thing that's the kind of struggle that you're going through right now? Is that what I understand?
Yeah.
Okay, because your time is valuable and you are on a time crunch, but I also think it's absolutely imperative not to ruin or burn any bridges of people that you're building up in your network. So I think an approach like that, saying, hey, it seems like you're really super busy. Let's get back together later on when things calm down, and then just move to the next person. That might be the best approach. And if that sets you back a week, it sets you back a week. Just let me know what's going on and do the best you can. If you need help connecting with these people, please let me know. But does this help, Kayla?
Yeah, I'll try that. Thank you.
Okay. As the last thing we want to do with any of these people we connect with is be rude or thoughtless. And but we also need to be mindful. You guys are professionals. You have things that you need to do and accomplish. So I will tell you this. Last semester, one person was having a heck of a time. It was 6 weeks to go in the semester, and he still had not been able to connect with anybody that was getting back with him. Finally, he made connections with Salt Lake Community College, and within a week and a half, they set him up with doing a series of workshops to help students prepare for submitting their portfolios to get into their degree programs that they wanted to. And it worked out really well. But yeah, he was getting a little bit past panic mode because people were not responding to him. And so what I found though, believe it or not, over the last 3 years with this service learning stuff, is when you keep trying, for whatever reason, I think the universe is responding to your desire to do something worthwhile, and things consistently work out. So don't worry too much. But our time together is at an end. If there's any last questions, that's great. Let me know. Other than that, I hope you guys have an absolutely spectacular spring break. Do everything you can to de-stress and wind down. And if you have any questions, let me know. Again, due dates are not set in stone. And I would really appreciate your input and responses for what for the workload and what we